What is the difference between crows and rooks? Dark-winged birds are so commonplace that we often overlook or misidentify them. Are they crows, rooks, ravens, or jackdaws? Not many people can be certain. Today's video looks at two of these, crows and rooks, and how you can finally tell them apart with confidence. So let's start by getting to know our subjects. Crows. The word crow is often used to refer to any bird in the Corvidae family, which sparks a ripple effect of confusion. However, strictly speaking, a crow refers to the medium to small species in the Corvus genus. Though there are echoes of debate, most taxonomists agree that about 34 of the 46 Corvus species are true crows. Oh, and the remaining species in Corvus? Ravens and rooks. But back to crows. Highly adaptable birds that have basically taken over the world. North or south, east or west, crows are everywhere. From the plains of East Africa to the beaches of the Caribbean, crows live and thrive anywhere, seizing every opportunity toward survival. With this wide distribution comes a wide range of adaptations, from the African pied crow, Corvus albus, European hooded crow, Corvus cornix, and Asian house crow, Corvus splendens, to a whole host of other species. Crows are arguably the most populous birds in the entire Old World. They have strong representation in the New World, too. The American crow, or Corvus brachyrhynchos, leads the way with a presence all over the US, southern Canada, and Mexico. You're also likely to run into the Tamaulipas crow, Corvus imperatus, if you're ever on or near the Gulf of Mexico coast. The American crow, arguably the most populous crow species in the world, is 16 to 20 inches long from bill to tail. The tail is around 50% of its body length. Body mass ranges from 11 to 21 ounces. Like most crow species, males are larger than females. Crows and all other corvid birds belong to the Passeriformes order, with passer meaning sparrow, while formes means shaped in Latin. Like sparrows, corvids are perching birds with 4 toes on each foot. 3 toes point forward while a 4th points backward, so the foot grips a perch. This is known as anisodactyl toe arrangement. The birds are famous for their resourcefulness and smarts. As opportunistic omnivores, they eat everything we eat and a lot of stuff we wouldn't ever eat. Bread, seed, carrion, or jelly babies, it really makes no difference. They are constantly prowling the skies, eyes scanning for easy pickings. Naturally, crows' voracious appetites and aggression when pursuing food makes them villains in many tales. They have been enemy number one to many a farmer for many a year, devastating crops of corn, wheat, and anything else they fancied. Crows were such a bane that they inspired the invention of the appropriately named scarecrow. They are also a menace around garbage cans and at dump sites. They are smart enough to learn how to tip garbage cans over. They tear through packaging to find leftovers, leaving trash strewn all over the street or your yard. One crow can certainly cause a lot of trouble, but a lot of the time they choose collaborative chaos. The birds can form flocks quickly, especially if something of the edible variety pops up and draws sufficient attention. Swarming crows will inevitably attract more crows, and a need for more scarecrows. Since time immemorial, crows have played significant roles in many cultures around the world, from aiding navigation to symbolic and even mythological significance. Civilizations used them as environmental signs, regarded them as deities incarnate, and used them as symbols for various virtues and vices. Crows are also deeply linked with negative supernatural hoodoo, or indeed voodoo. They often represent ill luck, poor harvest, and death. Interestingly, a group of crows is called a murder. Crows are also associated with witchcraft, much like owls. Their dark wings are used to symbolize the dark robes dark spellcasters are often depicted in, sparking beliefs that some crows may actually be shape-shifting witches in disguise. Rooks. Apart from being occasionally confused for crows or ravens, rooks actually have a much less complicated story than crows. That's because rooks, or Corvus frutilegus, are one species under the same Corvus genus as crows and ravens. There are 2 subspecies, the western rook, aka Corvus frutilegus, and the eastern rook, or Corvus frutilegus pastinator. They are pretty big birds, covered entirely in black feathers that shimmer blue hues in certain light. However, they have one standout feature. their pale faces. Unlike ravens and crows that have black faces and equally black beaks, rooks have white faces and pale beaks. Beaks on some individuals may be darker than others, but they are never completely black. Rooks weigh between 9.9 and 12 ounces and can be between 17 and 18 inches long, making them smaller than common carrion and American crows. They have shorter wingspans too, at 32 to 39 inches. Males are larger than females, and the western subspecies is larger than its eastern counterpart on average. Rooks live in various parts of Europe and Asia. The western rook ranges from the British Isles to southern Russia. The eastern rook's range stretches from the middle of Siberia to the bulk of Asia proper. In the 1800s, many rooks were introduced to New Zealand, where they quickly became invasive animals that required culling. Today, small groups remain there. Their preferred environment is wide open spaces with plenty of foraging that caters to their omnivorous needs. But they also need tall trees like sycamores to build their nests. They rarely ever make homes in dense forests, swamps, and hilly terrain, and they generally dwell at 400 feet above sea level or lower. Additionally, they prefer to live in untapped wilds or rural farm areas and actively avoid noisy towns and cities. Rooks are, for the most part, resident birds with no strict migration. However, populations within or close to the Arctic Circle fly south in autumn to avoid the brutal northern cold. They will also leave an area if the foraging is poor or if nesting sites are unsatisfactory. They are very social birds that spend a lot of their time in flocks. They share trees during the breeding season, with multiple couples establishing colonial nests among the high branches of a chosen host. A colony of rooks' nests is called a rookery. A flock of rooks is called a parliament, clamor, storytelling, or building. Another interesting thing about rooks is that males and females are monogamous and mate for life. Even when changing flocks, rooks often move as a pair. Rook flocks seem to be very egalitarian with no strict dominant structure. Rooks are not overly territorial, so they can even share brooding space with other flocks or even other bird species like jackdaws and crows. In fact, jackdaws and rooks are seen traveling together all the time. This collaboration is likely a defensive measure against predators. After all, it's much more difficult to sneak up on 100 birds than to sneak up on one or two. Their diets are quite varied and feature both plant and animal food sources. About 60% of what they eat comes from plants, fruits, roots, seeds, berries, while the rest comes from animals like worms, insects, mollusks, eggs, smaller birds, and mammals, as well as carrion. Rooks are not above getting down and dirty, like crows too. They are known to raid dump sites and trash cans, leaving disorder in their wake. They're also smart enough to target tourist areas and other places where edible garbage is likely to be lying around. Like other corvus birds, rooks are noted for their intelligence, problem-solving, and trainability. Captive rooks display all sorts of solutions to puzzles, some of which even include the use and modification of tools. They can do things like use a hooked wire to extend their reach, or even build small stone bridges to reach floating food. A group of rook lovers in France has even trained the birds to pick up litter instead of scattering it everywhere. Collaborative problem-solving is also part of the package, and rooks quickly turn to their friends if they cannot overcome a challenge alone. One animal that they have somewhat struggled to collaborate with is us. Humans have had a dislike for the birds for a long time, mainly due to the threat they pose to crops. Several laws permitting the culling of the birds have been issued and brutally enforced for centuries. Struggling farmers had to go further out of pocket to hire living scarecrows, who were usually screaming kids running around banging rattles, pots, and pans to scare the birds away. One common avenue for culling was the practice of rook shooting. This involves shooting juvenile rooks that couldn't fly yet from their branches. Young rooks are edible and are often used to make rook and rabbit pie. Adult rooks aren't edible, though. The International Union for the Conservation of Nature, IUCN, classifies the bird in the least concerned tier, and populations are expected to keep thriving. Of course, the rook faces threats from habitat destruction, human infrastructure, herbicides, and pesticides. So how are they different? Crows and rooks differ in a few ways. Classification, for starters. Crows make up the bulk of species and subspecies in the Corvus genus. Rooks are only one species, Frugilegus. There are also a bunch of physical differences as well. Size is one of these aspects. Though the two generally have the same body length and weight ranges, Rooks are smaller than the larger crow species like the American crow. Wingspan is another thing to look at. While rooks' wingspans are shorter outright, they are proportionally longer than crows. If you can't gauge the wingspan proportions, you could look at the tails. Crows have wedge-shaped tails with a flat bottom, while rooks have wedged tails with a bit of curvature. Up close, you can tell from their faces. As we mentioned before, rooks have whitish, featherless faces with pale beaks. Rooks have black faces to match their black bills. If you get really close, you can also look at their legs. Rooks have more feathers along their legs than crows, making them look like they're wearing trousers. Distribution and habitat are another major difference. Rooks live in the quiet plains and lowlands of Europe and Asia, and only occasionally settle in highly populated areas. In contrast, crows live in both the Old and New Worlds and thrive in a wider range of environments, including the biggest and busiest cities in the world.